to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast with Borg, Betz, and a baller.
Welcome in. It's the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I'm joined by Matthew Betz and Jason Moore.
Who doesn't love a good rankings show talking about some of the biggest questions in your dynasty leagues, who we're hot and bothered for, who we're scared of? Get into the real important players on today's show.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are in the middle of dynasty startup, right? Like, this is the season to do it. I think this show will be helpful because there's a lot of guys in the rankings that I don't know what to do with, and I'm hoping that you guys can help me out.
I can.
Well, there's also a point at this point in May where I'm weighing, I don't know anything right now. Things are going to change. And yet, over the course of history, there are things that are very, very true. Like, for instance, what if I told you at this point last year, Dameon Pierce was a top 15 dynasty running back in startups? We knew something, right?
I would have told you that this time last year, I was telling everybody to not get hot and bothered for Dameon Pierce because there's a fourth-round running back and they just never stick around.
True. Well, there's also players that last year you could see the path. And so if you were doing a dynasty startup, you could have told yourself a story and said, hey, maybe Treylon Burks. I could see it. They need a guy. You know, they got to have it. And we got news today that apparently they don't believe in him at all. They signed Tyler Boyd. So what a fall from grace of like, hey, we're going to trade basically A.J. Brown and get you to, I don't even know if we want you around.
Someone needs to trade for Treylon Burks. He has, you know, we use the phrase, the light has been left on for him. You know, some of the behind the scenes metrics, you know, the targets per route run or yards per route run, those type of things that usually indicate like a good player while he's on the field, but he hasn't been on the field that much. I feel like some other team who had them high on their boards, they just need to trade. I mean, what would they accept for him? Like a
sixth,
a seventh? Yeah,
maybe
like
a seventh.
a sixth, like, you know, a 6-7 swap. Like, just move us up to the 6th from the 7th, and you
the
can
fries
have
at the bottom of the bag. Like, that's what it'll take right now for Treylon.
Well, those are pretty good.
I know there's somebody in
Yeah.
your league who sees a path. Let me before we go any further, because this is an episode we're going to talk about startup ranks, give the bull case. You know, some of them are just like, hey, I don't see it. At the end, we'll even talk about some players that we've cut that you guys can roast us for. But like, what would be the case for someone like Treylon Burks in your league if you're either going to try to acquire him or, you know, you're trading him away? You're saying, okay, I'll take what would you take in a dynasty league? Anything? Yes,
Burks?
if you have him, because you have him, Jason, in a league, and I didn't want him.
Yeah. Well, I tried to unload him. You know, I would take right now with the rookie drafts going on. It really depends on who's on the board, but there's definitely some third rounders that I would rather have than Treylon Burks for the upside case. So, you know, if one of those guys was available, yeah, I might trade him just for that.
I would too. What's interesting though about Burks in just kind of this career arc path, and it seems like anything in the NFL happens, it feels like it was 10 years ago. But do you guys remember last August? Like, the drumbeat on Treylon Burks was insane. And then he has the knee injury in training camp. And so if there is any glimmer of hope, it's like, hey, maybe that injury had more to do with his season than not. I mean, truthfully, probably that's not the case. But if you're selling it in a trade to one of your league mates, I'd be using that as a selling point to try to unload him. Because, I mean, the NFL just moves so fast. I you know, this is a perfect example. And that's why, like, sometimes when you see it in year one and you're like, I can make an argument for this going well. Oftentimes, if you have to make, you know, 3 or 4 excuses for why it hasn't happened yet, it's a good sign of like, it's probably not happening. So I'm using that in a selling point, and I agree with Jason. Like, there's some guys that go in the 3rd round this year that I would definitely take over Treylon Burks in rookie drafts.
This is why I think some of the developmental, high upside, long-term options in Dynasty are overvalued, because the NFL does not have time for that crap anymore. The NFL does not have time to develop players that aren't producing in the first year or two. they're impatient and they move on. And with the NFL resembling more and more what college football has been, over the last 10, 20 years, it means players can come in and have success right away. And if they don't, we, the team, are not waiting around for you. And we, the league, are not going after guys that didn't work for the other team for a couple of years. So that's where it's like, I care a lot about how much is this player going to have success rookie year. If we're talking about rookies, or even if it's a veteran, like, do I care so much more about this year and the next year versus 5 years from now. It's overblown. And if you want to win a championship in Dynasty League, I don't know if everybody knows this, but if you win a championship, that means you scored a lot of fantasy points.
Not potential points.
Every single time. Every single time the winner of your championship scored the most points in the final week of the season. They scored the top half points of your league through the majority of the season. And not in next year, but this year, always. It sounds so stupid to say that because it is so stupid to say that. But it's like we forget that, like, if you want the ring on your finger, you have to care about now. You can't just care about youth and, oh, my team's built for the future.
Dynasty is all about perception, perceived value. This is what I think this player will be worth. But like you said, Jason, like, you can project all day, but the NFL is not going to say, hey, what is Treylon Burks 5 years from now? They're moving on right now. And, we've talked a lot about thresholds just to view wide receivers through 1 year or 2 years. There's basically only been a couple of dudes who after 2 years just said, hey, all of a sudden I'm awesome. It's Devontae Adams, who for the last 8 years has averaged 150 plus targets, and Devontae Parker, who out of nowhere, was like year 5, whatever, decided that he wanted to be good. So it just doesn't happen. And I think as a manager, it sucks because you invested something and you remember what you invested in Treylon Burks. I mean, people took Treylon Burks ahead of some guy, like ahead of Garrett Wilson or whoever else they did in their rookie drafts. And now you get to look back and say, okay, you know what? I just have to move on. So it's not fun. It's not fun to tell people that the best asset to have is a young wide receiver. And then, they're going to bust. Like this year's class, guys, there's going to be players that we love talking about right now. And I think a lot of people just forget, myself included, like, oh, this is what I thought at the time. And then I look up 2-3 years later and it's like, oh, well, this isn't going to work. So.
Yeah, Neighbors and Odunze. Those two guys are unbustable in most people's mind right now. Like neither one of those guys, they're part of the big three. They can't bust. They can't come into the NFL and fail. Oh yeah, they can. Oh yes, they can. Absolutely, they can. I don't think they're going to either. But like there are year after year after year. We know that all these top round 1 and round 2 wide receivers, they are not going to all hit. It's impossible. It never happens. So yeah, that's why a lot of us end up going the more veteran route. This guy's proven it. Yeah, I'll take it over the potential.
Yeah, it matters. It matters with that fantasy points scored actually is kind of predictive of fantasy sport points scored in the future. So if you want our startup rankings, they are live. They're there in the Ultimate Draft Kit Plus. We talked last week all about, everything that we've updated. Even as the Tyler Boyd news came through, we were able to update the depth charts and kind of see this Titans team is going to be very different this year. I mean, Will Levis is a wild card, but at least we can look at this offense and say they're trying something new with Brian Callahan in there. His dad's going to be the offensive line coach, bringing in Ridley, Pollard. I don't know if it's going to work, but at least we can say there is a range of outcomes for these Titans players. Now you're like, okay, well, it could work. I mean, I'd kind of bet against some aging veterans, but there is some upside there. So you can get all of that, all of our startup rankings in their Ultimate Draft Kit Plus if you want to get that. But I want to start us off a little different, boys.
I want to play a game.
So we're going to play a little game. And I think you two have the exact opposite reaction to the game. Jason, when he hears that drop, he gets excited.
I get excited, brother. I love when you bring these stupid games up because these games, usually, I don't know exactly what we're doing, but when you come with a game, it means that you have something that is surprising and usually makes us look stupid, but is fun along the way.
How do you feel?
That's mostly correct. And 90% of the time, Kyle does make us look like idiots, which he just sits there and smiles and laughs and really enjoys it. So as soon as I hear the drop, I just get this kind of uneasy feeling in my stomach, knowing that for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to probably sound like a complete idiot. So yeah, it's going to be great.
And I love doing this to Betz. I always spring it on him in DFS and betting podcasts, and he hates it. But
Also, Betz, we got a lot more of this show than 5 minutes. So, don't you worry. You got at least like 45 more minutes to sound stupid, my brother.
I'll see what I can do. All
right. Actually, what's ironic about that is I've seen some of the names you've highlighted in the show doc today, and you and I are in lockstep. So you're actually going to sound brilliant.
I'm going to just play the role
We'll
of the contrarian. It's a new role for me. So we'll see how it goes. I'm going to give you some players. And all I'm asking is a year ago, and I looked up this date, okay? A year ago to the date, where did these players go in Dynasty startups? So stroll back to May. Jason, you were a year younger then. Life was great.
The good old days.
I was actually still there in Arizona at this time. And where were these players going? What was this sentiment? So I'm going to give you a player, and then you two are going to guess where they went based on the position in a startup draft. So let's start at quarterback, and let's throw out the name Bryce Young. Where did Bryce Young go in Dynasty startups right after the NFL draft? He was taken 101. Frank Reich is the coach. Where were people taking him? And by the way, I decided to use 3 different sources and average them. Okay, so Sleeper, Keep Trade Cut, and Rotoviz. So just so we have a good little aggregate. So what do you think?
There's no way that he wasn't a top 15 quarterback. So I'll put him near there. I'm going to say quarterback 14.
I think it was a little higher. I'm going to go like quarterback 11, somewhere in that range.
You are dead on, Betz. It is quarterback 11 is where Bryce Young was going. And now he's kind of seen as right outside that top 20. And spoiler alert, we might be talking about him today because I'm in Dynasty. I think there's a window.
You fool.
You are a sick individual, Kyle.
Which is funny because Panthers fans, I think there's one fan base that I've lit on fire this year. It's been them. Like I've found every single bad statistic possible for Bryce Young, and they found me in the mentions. But we'll talk about him later. What about a running back? There is a guy, I don't know if you've heard of, Jason, and I know this doesn't hurt your feelings at all. Austin Eckler. In redraft, he was a top 5 pick. And I think in redraft, we got that. Now in Dynasty, you can say like, he was getting older. We weren't really sure. Where was Austin Eckler going in startup drafts last year?
I think he was pretty near there. I'm gonna go running back 6.
I think so. The Dynasty community is getting sharper every year. I think they recognize that the age was a possible concern, and I'll say RB 15.
All right, he was RB 11. So one site had him at 7, another at 12, one at 13. So
okay, so we're like right in that range. You average Betz and I together.
But think about that. Like knowing what you know now, and we have hindsight analysis, does that just feel insane to think about?
Yes.
Last year, I don't know what happened. I mean, you come out in week 1 and you start the season and Eckler just looks like he's going to be the same he's been, gets injured, and then, what is he now? The running back?
He's
800?
He's running back 42 on average. So wow. It is.
That's pain,
It's
man.
wild to think that because I don't think any of us thought like he's done. We would have said last year, like he's going to be really good for at least one more year. And we know that he has, this PPR floor. So that was painful to see. I will give us some good examples, by the way. So these are pretty tough, but Ramondre Stevenson, where was he going last year?
Ooh.
He had just had that breakout season. He had to be a top 10
young.
back. I'll say RB9.
Yeah, I'm sure he was pretty high. I don't think he's that high. I'll say RB12.
He was RB12. And
all right.
It's interesting this year because Ramondre Stevenson is going to his 4th year, final year under contract. They signed Antonio Gibson, who is younger than him. And it's an interesting debate between those two and just how they're going to use them, a new offensive coordinator. Anyway, RB12 last year. All right, a couple more names. Stephon Diggs, who was going into his age 30 season. Where is Stephon Diggs taken in startup drafts?
I think he was certainly a top 10 wide receiver. I'll say wide receiver 7.
Yeah, with the age thing and the Eckler, I'm gonna guess he was right around the wide receiver 12.
He was wide receiver 12, right there.
All right.
Wow, Jason's killing
You're right on the nose. Right now, he is seen by the crowds. This is keep trade cut. Wide receiver 36. So if you, for instance, were like me and had him in a league with a stack with Josh Allen, you no longer have that stack and you don't know what to do with him at all.
So drafting the older guys in startups is difficult, right? Right now or last year, Cooper Kupp and those type of players. But most people listening aren't necessarily making their team this year, right? Dynasties last forever. So you've got these players, and we talk about this all the time. But like when these highly ranked superstar old players are still valued really high, Eckler last year, Diggs last year, whoever, that is where you trade them for a young player and a first or something like that. And Betz, you're right. Dynasty managers are getting a little sharper. It might be a little bit more difficult, but it can still happen, especially for teams that, look, that you tell them the story of like, you're a star player away from a championship. Your pick, your first-round pick, it's going to be late anyways. So give me a young, up-and-coming guy who's not going to help your team that much and your first, and take this guy who's going to put you over the top. You can get those deals done, I'm telling you. And then you fast forward 1 year, and you're like, oh, yeah, I traded the wide receiver 45 right now for a young stud who's probably a wide receiver 15 this year in startups and a first-rounder.
I love that strategy. Yeah. When someone tells you that your pick is going to be late, it's like, dude, at worst, this is like the 110. I mean, your team is so good. As someone that hears that, you're like, you know what? You're right. Like, my team is that good. So psychologically, I love that in trade conversations. I think it works actually quite a bit.
I had Diggs in 2 leagues. In one of them, I held on because I had the stack, and I'm just sitting here not knowing what to do because I don't have the stack. Another one, I did what you said. I traded him. I was able to get assets, and then I was able to, eventually that team got worse, became the 105 in a super flex and became Rome Odunze. So it's like, you can make that kind of stuff happen. You need some patience. And Jason, is this kind of like this is one of your MOs, is like, be okay trading a year too early?
Yeah, I think you've got to balance that with what I said earlier about you still need to win now and have fantasy points now. But hopefully over a long term, if you're doing this constantly over the years, you should not just have like all of your players be old. You should have some veterans, some young guys, and some old guys, and then you cycle them through. And when the aging, when they get near that 30, those superstars, trade them for a young guy and a pick, and then you're going to do it again in 2 or 3 years with the guys that get a little older.
2 more names really quickly. Brandon Ayuk. Where was he going this time last year?
I think it was pretty low. Wide receiver 30.
Yeah, I mean, he had a good year 2 years ago, but it really felt like the breakout was this last year. Interesting. I'm going to go wide receiver 24, a little higher.
He was wide receiver 25 on average, which is weird for someone in this stage of their career. Like, I know we have the contract stuff, but shoots up to wide receiver 13 right now in startups on average. So you kind of have this major boost based on what he did last year, which was an insane yards per route run season, and probably going to get either some extension with either the 49ers or some other team. So I think it's valid, but we're very reactionary. I think in Dynasty, people don't realize this so much, but all of these names I've mentioned within 1 year changed drastically, and I can give way more names, but Dynasty valuations change a lot. And so Brandon Ayuk right now, you could look at as, well, he's like a cornerstone for a team, like a veteran that I feel good about, that, I could actually like stay with him for a couple more years, but I don't know. I feel like outlier numbers for him can change drastically a year from now. So I don't know,
wow.
Do you feel different?
Yeah. I mean, we've got a, one of the questions on today's show is, who is the stud that you are quietly nervous about in Dynasty? Brandon Ayuk would make that list for me. I don't see him as a cornerstone. I feel like as of this moment, we still don't know what team he's going to play for. If you knew for sure, hey, he's going to get an extension, re-sign with the Niners, they unload Debo. Okay, well, obviously Brandon Ayuk's going to be great. but there is a very not it's not infinitesimally small percentage chance that he's traded. He goes to a different team, and you just don't know in those situations if that's good for the player. Usually, it's bad for the player, and so I am probably lower than consensus.
And I know we've had that conversation, Jason, of just repeating those numbers, those efficiency numbers for him is the scariest thing.
It's impossible. In fact,
Unless
when we talk about
he's a Niner,
we'll talk about a different player who I love, who I'm scared of because you just can't repeat certain efficiency numbers. It's impossible.
All right, last name.
and I do think real quick before we move on with the Niners thing, like one of Debo or Ayuk is not on this team next year. Which one is it? It's hard to say. They draft Ricky Pearsall in round 1. That tells you a lot. Both these guys are in a contract year. They have to pay Brock Purdy more than $100,000 or whatever he's making right now. Like, they have to actually pay that guy. So one of those two is gone. It's a really interesting, strange time for those guys. I lean personally that they bring Ayuk back. He's on the upward trajectory of his career. Debo's on the other side of that. I think Ayuk stays, and I'm actually on the other side of where you guys are. I'm way more into Ayuk than I think you both are. And last year he was a guy I was targeting aggressively just because I thought he was that good. And I don't think anyone saw what happened last year coming, but I think he comes back to San Francisco, and I think Debo's on the way out.
Is it one of the bigger range of outcomes? I think that was what I was trying to point out, is that some people will view him as a cornerstone. Some people could poke holes in him statistically. Some people might think he's going to be on a different team. Like, you could get wildly different valuations in your league for this player, where I don't think it would surprise us if he was, a wide receiver 1 this next year. Like, he's good enough to do it, but I think it's more in the range of outcomes to him to be in the 20s, back where he was last year, which was like wide receiver 25. So year to year, it's a ping pong ball. And certain players aren't as stable. I mean, he's not, second year anymore. Like, he's going into what, year 4, year 5? Like, it's just different. So I did want to throw out Dallas Goedert. I want to throw out one tight end because his situation has not changed at all. Yet last year, where would you guess he was going among the tight ends in startup?
Oh, very high. He has to be like tight end 6.
That's the number that popped in my head.
Tight end
too.
6. You want to guess where he's going based on the crowds right now?
Oh, man.
Tight end 12.
15?
I mean,
what?
I'm good
I
at
feel
this
like
game.
you do have a pulse on the people. And that's what, when we reference certain, ADPs, it's more of, this is the sentiment. This is how people feel. It doesn't mean that he's worth that. It just means like, this is what you could do in a trade, or this is how you could work a deal. But I don't know. Tight end 16 feels like he's just buried where he still has a contract and still has an elite team. Do you guys feel like that's too far?
Nope.
He's done?
See,
Yep.
Oh, no.
I'm OUT.
Oh,
I think he's an interesting trade for target at that price.
That's what's great
you're
about
a
having
contender.
3 different intelligent people on the show. We both of us can't be right, but both of us can't be wrong.
I'm trying to think if that's actually true. Both of us can't. Anyway, we'll get to it. We got some debates. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back. So we're going to be talking some dynasty rankings, and as we mentioned, valuing players is a tricky process. It's not perfect. So if you go on a certain site and you see a ranking, don't just think, oh, this is the only thing that's what it is. There's so much more context. It's just not an exact science. We're projecting over a couple of years. And so I asked this question before we get into our questions, guys. How many years do you look out when you look at a player? Because in Dynasty, some people think they drafted Marvin Harrison and they go to 10 years. Jason's saying 3.
3. I look at a 3-year window. If you're looking longer than that, you're crazy. I mean, there's like a few players, they're like Mahomes. Okay, all right. I think he's going to be good way longer than 3, and I'm confident in that. But this is for the elite of the elite. This is not something you should be looking at with your roster and saying, I think, this guy on the next contract is going to be, what are you talking about? You go back and look at an NFL roster 2 years ago. Go find any NFL roster from 2020, what would that be, 2022? and go read it. And you'll be like, what? That dude was on that team? I forgot. It's unbelievable.
Betz.
Yeah, 2 years, sometimes 3 years, but definitely no more than that.
And I think with the running back position, especially if it's like the RB2 slot, 1 year might be all you get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This year. What are you going to do this year? Maybe.
All right, let's get into it.
Dynasty rankings.
So let's start off talking about the hardest players to rank. And let's just get into running backs. I'll go first really quickly, but there are so many running backs that are helpful for dynasty rosters. And yet, when it comes to trading for them, you might have to overpay. And then when it comes to trading them away, you might not get as much as you think they're worth for your team. So there's a number of guys that I have on my rosters as like RB2s. They're solid, and yet I don't know what to do with them, so I need some help. It's David Montgomery. What do I do?
You keep them. You keep your RB2s. That's what you do in Dynasty. Every team needs RB2s and can't come by them and has to overpay if you've got them, or if you're going to try to go get them. If you have them, if you've got an RB2, just keep them. Just view them as like, okay, cool. I'm never going to get a ton for that guy, but I am going to get fantasy points in my RB2 slot, my flex slot, on bye weeks. On like, you keep those players. That's what those are not trade candidates.
It's tough because so he's entering the second year of his contract with the Lions. It really was a 3-year deal, but it's.
You're talking about David Montgomery?
I said David Montgomery. It's really a 2-year deal. Like next year is not a guarantee by any means. He's about to turn 27. And my question is, does he go the way of James Conner, where you get a couple of years of this guy that's just dependable? I mean, David Montgomery's gotten so many opportunities in the NFL. I mean, we called him David Opportunity, and his role inside the 20s was awesome this past year, 5th most red zone touches. But the part that I have an issue with is that 90% of his fantasy points came via the ground. And if you look at the guys that had those type of seasons over the last 5 years, it was like that Jamal Williams year, also with the Lions. That didn't go so well. Miles Sanders had a season like that. Didn't go so well. Damian Harris, you remember that massive touchdown season he had? And it didn't go there. So talent-wise, I think Montgomery's better than those dudes. But it's scary when you're holding on to a player knowing next year, he's not a guarantee. So I don't know. Where would you guys even rank him? I mean, Jason, you can look at your startup rankings, but like, I don't feel comfortable ranking this player at all.
Yeah, I totally understand it because long-term view is just wildly up in the air. He could be a 1-year player and then kapoof, go get a backup job for some other team that isn't good, be irrelevant for fantasy, and basically have 1 year and done. But I would ask you to repeat what you said right before we started this segment, which is, well, how long a view do you look at running backs? This year, that's the important year for running backs. David Montgomery should be absolutely fine. I have him ranked as my RB21 right now, so low end 2 because he's going to be valuable right now. He will be good this year. If something happened to Jahmyr Gibbs this year, now he becomes a league winner, and I don't think people are paying enough to acquire that kind of value off your team. So for me, I hold on to David Montgomery. I think he's a very valuable fantasy asset for 2024, which means even in dynasty leagues, he's valuable. And it's not to say that he can't be a Lion past that, or he can't find another job when he's 27. He's a talented guy. I expect him to be with the Lions 2 years from now, but obviously they could cut him with like a $2 million dead cap after this season.
Yeah, Montgomery's so interesting because when you look at what he did last year, especially at the start of the season, the first 4 or 5 games, when they really slow played Gibbs, he was like unreal in terms of his workload, over 24 opportunities per game in that sample. Then he gets the injury, Gibbs comes on, bye week gets here, and then down the stretch, just over 16 opportunities per game. So you really did see a drop when they let Gibbs, get unleashed. So I think he's a guy that, if you ask me, this time next year, we're talking about his season and what he just did in 2024, I'd say probably not as good as what he just did because I expect Gibbs to take a step forward. But like Jason said, there's you can't calculate the upside of what there is if something happens to Gibbs, which he gives you a massive upside in your roster. So to me, I think low end RB2 is what I would expect. I think touchdowns will be there. I think he'll have opportunities as a lead ball carrier. But like you said, almost all of his production is coming on the ground. It just leaves you more of a floor in fantasy when that's the case. So yeah, I think RB2 is fine, but certainly he has RB1 upside, like Jason said, if Gibbs goes down.
Yeah, I would just say if you are a team that, you think you can contend, I think he's a candidate where you could hold in hopes that either there is upside if Gibbs goes down, or there's a team that needs to trade for him closer to the trade deadline, and his value, hopefully becomes even better, that people are willing to trade draft picks at that point. But
yeah, obviously, if you're at the trade deadline and it looks like you're not making the playoffs, and you want to try to unload him while he's on a touchdown streak, that's the right time to do it. That's the right time to move on from him to a contender or whatever. Talk about how your first-round pick is going to be super low and, get a first for him. But otherwise, right now, you hold on to him.
I tried to do that last year, and yet I traded for him, and then I did not make the playoffs, and then my pick became even more valuable. Betz, you're up.
Let's keep the running back talk going here. Let's talk about Javonte Williams, 24 years old. And it's such, so what sad. Think about what he was during his rookie season. Like even in rookie drafts, he was so highly coveted coming out of UNC, broke like all the PFF metrics for broken tackles, all that stuff, shows you what you want in year one, looks awesome. He's valued as a top, I don't have the number in front of me, but top 12 running back in Dynasty entering year two. That's when he has the knee injury.
Oh,
and
gosh.
Then
I think from memory, Betz, I think he was going into year two, like right before the season when the hype was at its highest. I think he was like a top 5 startup running back. He was he was untouchable. You couldn't get him. He was going to be the next young superstar back.
And everything in his profile said that was right in terms of his evaluation. But then he has the knee injury and, of course, misses the rest of the season. Now we get to this past season, 2023, and we all knew it was going to be a down year for Javonte, right? And it was 3.6 yards per carry, 3.8 yards per touch, just 3 rushing touchdowns. He was out there, but didn't really help you in fantasy. Now he's entering a contract year, and you know what he could be because of what he did in his first couple seasons and in college, but you also know that his value just hangs in the balance. I could see this going any number of directions where he does bounce back in year two off the injury. He's really good. He reminds us that he's that good. He gets a contract in free agency, and all of a sudden you've got another, top 15 to 17 ranked guy entering next season if he gets that contract. But at the same time, this Broncos offense could be abysmal. If Bo Nix is not great and they want to give these other running backs on the roster a little bit more work, they don't make the playoffs, etc. I see a path where it goes sideways. So I have no clue how to value this player. I'm interested in trying to get him in some leagues just on the cheap, if that's possible, just because of what he showed. And I feels like at this point, we're kind of double counting the injury where we knew it was going to be a down year. It was a down year. And now we're like, oh, is Javonte good anymore? We kind of already knew that. So he's interesting. I don't know what to do.
I actually really like you bringing up the double counting of the injury, because that does feel like what it is right now. It feels like, well, we just saw that he was bad, so now we know he's bad. Well, it's like we knew he was going to be bad off that injury. He shouldn't have been there week one. If you can, it's so hard to rewind and remember, but going into training camp preseason, it was impossible with the knee injury he had. On the Fantasy Footballers, the main show, we were talking about how when we statted him out to miss half the season. He's going to start on the PUP. He's not going to be there. And then there were the rumors of oh no, they're expecting him to have a full workload and he's going to be there by week one. And we're like, yeah, sure, in your bra. And then Peyton's like, he's gonna play preseason week one. And we're like, yeah, I'll believe that when I saw, oh my goodness, he's playing in preseason. What is happening? And so he came back from a very nasty injury, came back earlier than everyone expected, and was not at the performance level. And we have so many studies done, Betz, you've done them, of ACL injuries, and the performance level getting back is not usually in year one. It's in year two. So I don't mind. I'll be honest. So I've already statted out this year's UDK, at least the first run through. When I was done with my first run through, there were a couple of players I had to tweak because I was too far off of consensus for my own I was like, that doesn't feel right. I need to learn lessons. I need to, not just be on my own island here. And one of them was Javonte was really high. I was really surprised how high Javonte was. I moved him down and gave Jaleel McLaughlin, a larger share because I do think that they don't view Javonte Williams as the future back in Denver. But the depth chart there, man, Samaje Perine
he's cut,
toast.
right? He's going to get cut.
Yeah,
Probably.
He's either going to get cut or he's going to get benched. So either way, he's not there. Jaleel McLaughlin is fine. Peyton likes him. He's got juice, but he's also not someone that's going to take a huge workload. Audric Estime, I know it's rookie season, and people are like, but I liked that guy. He was what, a fifth rounder, sixth rounder, something like that. So he fell in the draft. He's only seen as a first and second down back. The opportunity will 100% be given to Javonte Williams. Now, if Javonte Williams comes out and is the same, 3.5 yard a carry guy that he was last year, okay, well then he fails at the opportunity. But he will get it. And if he's just recovered from the injuries, 24 years old, that is statistically that is the prime year for running backs, is 24 years old. Now he's 2 years removed from the injury. But man, I agree with you. He's hard to rank because it's like, if he comes out and sucks like he sucked last year, he's done. He's DUN. There's just no future for him. So the range of outcomes is crazy for that
It's
guy.
also crazy to think that this team, the Broncos running backs were number one in the league in running back receptions. You wouldn't know it because it was spread out so much. Javonte had 47, Perine had 50, but at least there's opportunity. I don't know if they'll use the exact same dink and dunk. Russ checked it down so much last year, but they're,
Bo Nix loves.
I was going to say that's
short.
sort of Bo Nix's thing.
I think that Javonte, if you wanted to acquire him on the cheap, but if somebody has him, they're still holding on to, I remember what he was. That's why it's so hard to trade for players like this, because people are still holding out hope. If you took him in your rookie draft and you're one of those people, you're like,
hold strong here. Hold strong.
Just hold the line. So it's a great one to bring up. Jason, you have another player who I have in a league, and I don't know what to do with him either in his final year under contract.
Yeah, that's the issue, is the final year under contract, because I think the player's good, his situation is great, but it's like it could evaporate next year. I'm talking about 25-year-old Nico Collins. Unbelievable breakout in his third year. A year ago, he was the wide receiver 65 in startup drafts, and now he comes out and has one of the greatest yards per route run seasons of all time. He's up there with the who's who of anything. He was so efficient. He led all wide receivers in broken tackles with 16. The next closest was at 12. And he was a very boom-bust guy. He had 6 finishes as a top 12 wide receiver last year. Ironically, 0 finishes as a wide receiver, too. That's not his thing. He's like, I'm the man or I'm not. He's young. He's tied to a young, budding superstar quarterback. The path forward is so clearly wonderful for him. In fact, this shocked me, because I have Nico Collins as my third target earner in this offense for 2024. So I have him third in the pecking order. But the way that I see this offense going and the role that I see him playing, he actually comes out. I don't know if I'll stay there or not, but he came out as my first wide receiver in fantasy points scored this year. And so if he ends up a really important part of this offense, scoring deep touchdowns throughout this season, they will re-sign him, and he will be an unbelievably great dynasty asset. But all of a sudden, if he falls to third in targets, it doesn't score deep touchdowns, it isn't really making an impact on the team behind Tank Dell, behind Stephon Diggs. Now he's an unrestricted free agent on the market after a down year with a one year breakout and 2 years of, taking his time to not really show much in his first 2 years in his career, where I have a really hard time ranking him in Dynasty. It's much easier in redraft, but in Dynasty, I just don't know what his future is. So it's, I will say this. Nico's not out of the league. He's not a running back, right? Like running backs, when you go, okay, David Montgomery, let's say he's cut next year. He's out of the league, not maybe really, but he's like, he'll go and sign a backup contract somewhere and be out of fantasy leagues. Like where if he signs a backup contract for a bad team, he's just poof he's not going to
He's Dalvin
start.
Cook.
He's never going to be a thing. Nico, if he hits the free agent market, he's a wide receiver. He's young. He's had success. Some team will pay a lot of money for him and give him a big opportunity. So I guess he should be a little bit aired on the higher side, but his range of outcomes is wide to me.
Is he a top 15 dynasty wide receiver?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Top 20, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, I'm curious where
that kind of feels
him ranked.
right to me, but I mean, if someone wanted to argue a little higher, a little lower, I wouldn't fault them. To Jason's point, in terms of him being statted out, projected to finish as the wide receiver 1 for fantasy in Houston this year, I mean, I feel like right now, and rightly so, everyone's excited about Tank Dell, but everyone's like, I'm worried about this team because, not worried as they're going to be bad, but worried like his value might take a hit or Tank's might take a hit because of Stephon Diggs. Remember, the Stephon Diggs contract, they voided the last few years, so he is probably not coming back unless it's a cheap deal next year. And this is the type of guy that, Steph Diggs was great to start the year. He was great 2 years ago. But like when you see the decline happen, I like to leverage that in Dynasty. And, Tank, Nico are on the upward trajectory of their career. Stephon Diggs is on the downward trajectory of his career. If Jason's stat projections come to fruition and are correct, which, I mean, they are always spot on. I think Nico's a guy that I want to go trade for, just with everyone kind of worried about the Diggs aspect of it, because, I mean, last year he was just incredible.
Yeah, right now I've got him ranked as my wide receiver 26, which it feels low, but I look at the names ahead of him, and I don't know how I move him ahead. I mean, there's Zay Flowers. Maybe you'd rather have Nico than Zay, or T. Higgins. Those guys are maybe a debate. I've also got Xavier Worthy and Keon Coleman ahead of Nico, which to me I would stick with. Jordan Addison's ahead of him. Tank Dell's ahead of him. So it's like I don't see how I move Nico up from 26.
But it doesn't mean you hate him.
No, I don't.
Yeah. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. All right, next category we're going to talk about, man, I'm not good at that part, is players you find yourself higher than the consensus. And so I wanted to bring up George Pickens because not only is he younger than Xavier Leggett, or however he says his name this week, because it'll change, only 23 years old, but this is an offense that's going to run a ton of two wide stuff with Arthur Smith. And last year he was awesome. When Deontay was off the field, he was awesome. It was almost 3 yards per out run. And he's in this weird tier of players that I think people don't know what to do with. Like, you get to a certain point, Jason was mentioned, like in the 25 to 35 range of wide receivers. And it's like, where do I stick Keenan Allen? What do I do with Rashee Rice? What do I do with Terry McLaurin, who's going ahead of him in startups? And then George Pickens is this nebulous young player who I think, Jason, you can check this out, but I'm assuming you have him statted out for the most targets on the Steelers.
Oh, I'm sure I do.
And then like players like Calvin Ridley or Chris Godwin that are aging. So like he's so young that I think it's worth betting on a player because he improved across the board, especially against zone last year. That was the big thing that I thought like, oh, is that all he's going to be, is a guy who just goes one-on-one? But like solid yards per out run against zone last year, improved in a number of metrics that I'm willing to buy in, even though I haven't fully seen it yet. But last year, 1,100 yards. That's fine. I get it. It's kind of inefficient sometimes. But with new quarterbacks, I'm willing to just jump in ahead of time. A year from now, would it shock you guys if he's the wide receiver 18, wide receiver 20 in Dynasty startups?
I wouldn't be shocked by that.
It wouldn't shock me, but I wouldn't bet on
You're about
that.
to say
Okay.
it wouldn't shock me, but I'd be surprised.
But you're not having to pay that price, is what I'm saying. Is I think it's in the range of outcomes, and I think he's being viewed as wide receiver 35-ish in startup.
Yeah, you're right in the sense that like I'm not excited about George Pickens, and so when we're looking at, these are individual answers of like, who are you higher than consensus on? I like hearing these names that I am consensus. And so, Kyle, you're saying you are thinking that consensus is too low on George Pickens. I like hearing the arguments for that because you are right. The opportunity for him to come out and be the alpha, it that is what's going to happen. He will come out and be the alpha for that team. It's just a matter of, can he do it?
And
what do you believe
valuable?
in him? I love this college tape. I think I do worry a little bit that he's a sideline jump ball only guy. So I love hearing about the targets per route run against zone coverage and those type of things. Maybe I need to adjust him, move him up.
How many targets do you have him down for?
It's not a ton. Got him down for 118 targets.
It makes sense based on the system and everything. He had 104 last year.
Yeah, right. I mean, I've got him going from a 21% target share to a 24% target share, but I think this team with Arthur Smith is going to run the ball a lot. This team with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson is going to throw the ball as little as they can. And so 24% of this system, I've got at 118 targets.
All right, Betsy, who you got next?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about a player that I just really like if you're a contender, and if you're kind of looking for guys that are probably values in startup drafts, rather. To me, it's Christian Kirk, and that name is not sexy, right? Like when you click the button in a startup draft, you're not like showing your buddies, like, dude, I just got Christian Kirk. Like, look at this team. Like, no, he's not that, but he's 27 years old, and you look at the wide receiver room. Without Calvin Ridley, without Zay Jones, they're vacating the second highest air yard share and the fifth highest target share in the league. Enter Gabe Davis, enter Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU, and you look at Gabe Davis, his targets per route run numbers have dropped in 3 straight years. He's just not a target earner. Brian Thomas, we've talked about the production profile in year 1 and year 2 in college was not great. He explodes in year 3. Now he's a first-round pick, but he's not earning targets at an elite level in college, and he was playing next to Malik Neighbors, so I get that. But to me, Christian Kirk is the wide receiver target earner in this offense. They're going to scheme him looks. He was the wide receiver 23 in fantasy last year before his groin injury at the end of the season. And he's a guy that I think will give you fringe wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 numbers, but you don't have to pay that price. And for a contender or someone to get value in your draft, I think Christian Kirk is the guy to target. Specifically, when you look at what has changed in this offense, he and Evan Ingram will be the constants.
I think that's well said. Of just, you look at who's earning targets here. It's an offense that we thought would take a massive step forward this past year and really, wasn't there for Lawrence, but the pieces are still there. And yeah, if you're going to bet on somebody to see the most targets and to be consistent, it's not a sexy name, but you could get him right now for cheap. So I like that.
That's what makes this a great pick. That's what makes this a really sharp transaction. He's not a sexy name. This is a middling wide receiver 2, ho-hum, boring at best. That isn't the truth. That is not the truth. He has upside past that. He has opportunity. He has vacated targets. I love this pick. I just think if you are a contending team, get him on the cheap. Just keep offering cheap offers. Keep offering cheap offers. Find different offers, different cheap offers. Don't break the bank for him. That's the point. But just go get them for cheap from someone who has them, because they're not excited.
Right. And I bet there's some rookies that they're saying, oh, I see the potential in, Xavier Legette or Ricky Pearsall that were taken in the first round that right now are going in the second round. Would you rather have those guys or Christian Kirk if you're a contender?
Oh, it's Kirk.
Yeah, that's very interesting way to put it, because if you're a contender, Christian Kirk's going to help you.
And, Ricky Pearsall's out of the league in a year, so who knows? Sorry, I guess.
Stop.
Are you really anti-Ricky Pearsall? I brought him up so long ago as one of my favorites, and you were blown away. You're like,
Kyle just saw his age
you
and
just
immediately
don't
logged out. He didn't watch a single snap.
Kyle
anything else.
He is the most ageist dynasty manager I know, rookie prospect manager. And the truth is, it's usually like,
it's funny because I like veterans that are older. Like I like Christian Kirk. 27 doesn't bother me at all, but Ricky Pearsall.
Well, once they've proven it. But like,
here's the problem.
Yeah, when rookies are beaten up on, when you've got 18-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds in college, and then all of a sudden you break out at 23 as a man playing against 18-year-olds, it's like, okay, well, why couldn't you do that earlier? It makes complete sense. If you break out as an 18-year-old playing against some of those 20, 21, 22-year-olds, okay, you've got more chance of succeeding. Breakout matters.
And that's why, like I said, George Pickens is younger than these dudes, and he's been in the league, and we've seen him have some moments. I will say Ricky Pearsall gives off the "I'm the coolest guy in the room" vibes, and that is a list that I don't like people to be on. And it's biased.
I will agree with that. That is a non-scientific true
It's part
statement.
of Kyle's model, actually.
All right. Per Kyle, yeah, is that in your model? Is the
vibes-based
I missed some
analysis?
Yeah, total vibes thing. All right, Jason, I've taken your advice on this pick in a couple of leagues, and I'm loving it.
Congratulations. It's going to work out really well for you. The player that I am higher than consensus on is Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is, well, he's really good at football. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Josh Allen. He's not going to be, one of the best 3 players in the league, but he's a very, very good quarterback. And not only is he a very good quarterback, more importantly, he is a very valuable fantasy quarterback. He is a true dual threat. I've got him as the quarterback 5 versus right now, I think consensus is around quarterback 11. This is a guy who's 26 years old. He signed a 5-year, $235 million extension with $160 million guaranteed. He is a franchise quarterback that is young, that is dual threat. Last year, coming off of the ACL injury, yeah, he missed the first half. But from week 10 on, he was the quarterback 9 in points per game. Do you want to know who his top 3 wide receiver targets were? Greg Dortch, Michael Wilson, and Rondale Moore. Those were his top 3 during that stretch, his top 3 targets. Now you've got Zay Jones visiting the team today. I don't know, but they're still looking at other guys. Obviously, they brought in Marvin Harrison Jr., a future Hall of Famer. He's a year removed from the ACL injury. He is always, every game he plays, he's a good fantasy asset. I'm a Cardinal fan. I watch the games. I'm frustrated, man. I'm not saying I love Kyler the player. Like, sometimes he just doesn't take what's given to him. The way he runs is funny looking and annoying. But there is not a frequent game where he's on the field for fantasy purposes where he is not valuable. And he is not valued like that. He's young. He's under contract. He's on an ascending offense. He's dual threat. There's nothing to not love about Kyler for fantasy purposes.
He's been on our trade targets list each of the last 2 years that Mike's brought him up to, and I feel like the window's closing. Where,
yeah, well, it's going to close really quick soon. I mean, last year he was on our trade for target because of the injury, because he was left for dead, and I understand that some players can't have a quarterback miss half the season. But when you got him last year, it cost you nothing. It was so easy to get him. Now I still think it's decently easy to get him, but by the end of this year, you're not going to be able to easily pay it.
Yeah, it's one of those players that since he's been in the league, he's averaged 20 fantasy points per game in full games. If you knew you were getting 20 fantasy points per game, and that's in 4-point, I mean that is just a solid floor.
That's outstanding.
Yeah. I'm going to give us some quick hitters here, where we're just going to get to names of players based on startup rankings that we're either scared of or players that you can add or players that are cheap. And all I really want is just from you guys just to say, like, I'm with you or I think you're crazy. So this first category is a stud you are quietly nervous about in Dynasty. And I wanted to bring up Tyreek Hill. And I just say first, I'm not a Tyreek Hill manager anywhere. So maybe I'm just, feeling this for other people. But 30 years old in cheetah years, that's 333 years old, if you needed that math. He's under contract for 2 more years. He says he wants to play in Miami and be there for 2 years. But things change in the NFL. We talk about that all the time. Is he immune, guys, because of his playing style? Because I look at every other wide receiver, Julio, Hopkins, Adams, Diggs, and once you got to age 30, you had a year, and then it was gone. Is he just different, and I should ignore it?
Yeah, he is. You should. Now, I don't have a problem if this is one of those guys you want to trade for. If you can get a true young stud in a first, but it's hard to get a young stud and a first. Maybe someone will do that for Tyreek, but I'm not worried about it. I think you're going to get 2 great years of Tyreek, and he's going to retire.
What about Drake London in a first?
I would
do that.
Okay.
If you could.
I think you need to find somebody that is not yet just like elite that someone still has to be like, I haven't fully seen it yet. You can see the path, but
yeah, or you can do, and this is a little bit more rare, but you could do the style of like, would you trade Tyreek and a first for CeeDee Lamb?
I think I would.
I would.
Because I would do that, and that you might be able to get done.
Makes sense.
Makes sense. Betz?
All right, Betz, you bring
I
up
am
the best
terrified
one.
of Josh Jacobs. I mean, the writing is on the wall that I think we all can agree we saw the best season that we'll ever see from Josh Jacobs in the NFL, which was a couple years ago when he was the rushing leader in the NFL out of nowhere. That was the year, like in redraft, he was going like the 8th round, right? Remember that? But he's 26 years old. He's entering year 6 in the league, which is an important data point because I want to plug Marvin Eloquin's Dynasty Life Cycles article. It's in the UDK Plus as part of the Dynasty Pass. Like the most frequent, phases of a player's career that they start to hit the decline, it is year 6 and year 7. This goes back to 2000. So we have a pretty big sample of when this happens for running backs. It's right now in this player's archetype. Again, 26 years old. Doesn't sound old, but he's approaching that point. I mean, you look at what he did last year. Ian Hartitz put this out on Twitter. It's such a good comparison. Like yards per carry, he was the same as Ezekiel Elliott last year. Yards after contact per attempt, he was worse than Ezekiel Elliott. Worse in missed tackles forced per attempt. Worse in explosive rush rate. Like he was just terrible last year. And you're going to say to yourself, like, look, that was a one down year. Like he'll bounce back this year. I know he will. But sometimes these players just don't bounce back. And the thing that is absolutely terrifying about him, and we've talked about it on the show already, is just you see 4 years, $48 million. But the reality of the contract is that it's more just a 1-year deal. And if it goes well, they'll keep him around. And if not, I think he's gone. So Josh Jacobs' value right now is pretty high. I could see it falling off a cliff if things don't go well this year.
I agree. Yeah, they can get out of this contract after this year. If it falls off a cliff, it's over for him. He scares me. He could obviously be great. He's going to a great offense, awesome opportunity, and he has been a bounce back and forth player where it's like good year, bad year, good year, bad year, good year, bad year. So now maybe we're on to the good year. We'll find out. The player that terrifies me, and anyone listening to this show knows I love this player. I love his fit for the system. I think he's outrageously talented, and I am in, personally. I am saying yes to Devon Achane. He's awesome. But boy, oh boy, does he terrify the tarnations out of me. You cannot be this efficient. I don't care who you are. You're not, you're not rushing for 9. What did he have? His yards per carry last year was, I believe, 700 yards per carry. 7.8. You're not doing that. I mean, the best players, the Jamal Charles is like, oh, you're breaking that 5 barrier. Whether he'll have enough workload to meet the efficiency and stay healthy. Those 3 tiers just really scare me with him. I'm still willing to gamble though.
I hope they use him as this do-it-all slot option guy. Because that's where he was. I mean, he's fun. He's fun anywhere on the field, but he lined up in the slot 35% of his pass plays. It was the highest among running backs. It's different. And we love McDaniel because whatever he's throwing out there is not normal.
I do love that, but that means that like the Malik Washington, Odell Beckham Jr. trying to upgrade who might be in the slots, like, don't do that. Just put Devon Achane in there. What are you doing?
They are the dynasty team that just said, like, let's get as many guys. I don't know how it's going to work with Jalen Wright or, all these dudes, but like they just loaded up on speed and said, let's figure it out. Give me a cheap quarterback 2 in Superflex. So somebody that's in a startup or somebody could acquire on the cheap. And I personally don't like trading for QB3s. I just think it's kind of you're playing for floor outcome. You're basically saying, I get my 2 guys are going to get hurt. But I did a question out there and I just said, okay, who won Superflex leagues last year in Dynasty? And the thread was a bunch of rando dudes. I mean, you could win with anybody in Superflex. I mean, last year it was Flacco at the very end, but teams are winning with Gardner Minshew. Teams are winning with every combination. So I think Bryce Young is cheaper than what he needs to be because I'm at least leaving the door open. Not only that he could be better than last year, but better than QB 24 that the pendulum swung from, what did I say? Like he's QB 10 or 11 in startups to now it's too far. I think he could finish the year QB 15. And in a Superflex league, that could work. Now, whoever drafted him last year probably is going to hold on and wait because they're kicking themselves for not getting Stroud. But I think he's too cheap. And I also want to say Will Levis.
Oh, I have Will Levis ranked higher than Bryce Young in startup drafts. I would rather have Will Levis than
Who
Bryce
has
Young.
the bigger chance? I mean, the ceiling is, you're saying, is with Levis. Like, he could finish.
The ceiling is with Levis. I think the probability of success is with Levis. The only thing that is on the side of Bryce Young is the rope. Like, his leash is much. He was the number one pick. If both these guys suck this year, Bryce Young is a starter next year. If Will Levis sucks this year, Will Levis is done.
Yeah. No, that's maybe a good point. But both of them, I think, are cheaper than they need to be, and you could acquire them. Betz?
Kyle loves Bryce Young. Just let everyone know that. My guy that I'm going to throw out is Jared Goff, who, right now feels like kind of this middling option that you're like, is there really any ceiling there? This guy's been the quarterback 10 and the quarterback 7 the last 2 years in Detroit. They love this guy. Like, they love this guy and what he does for their offense and how he fits. It's perfect for the offensive scheme. Ben Johnson is back for another year, the OC. A big extension's coming up. They just signed Amon-Ra to a long-term deal. Jamison Williams is finally healthy for the offseason. We'll see how long that lasts. Sam Laporta is taking a year or two leap. Jahmyr Gibbs is taking a year or two leap. Like, everything in this offense is trending in the right direction. He plays in a dome. Jared Goff, to me, is like the perfect guy you can trade for at like a quarterback 15 price tag, but he might give you top 10 numbers because of how good this offense is.
Yeah. Jared Goff has, he ruined Hendon Hooker. He said, you could drop Hendon Hooker. You're not getting a chance. My guy that I'm going to pick up if I'm trading for a quarterback too is a very irrelevant player. It is Brock Purdy, also known as the quarterback 6 last year, which might be surprising to you. Also, in my UDK rankings, is currently a top 10 quarterback. And if the weapon, I mean, I've got him statted right now with the weapons all in tow. So if he's got Ayuk, he's got Samuel, he's got Pearsall, he's got Kittle and McCaffrey. I mean, he's going to be extremely efficient with touchdowns again. But he doesn't cost as much as his value is. So Brock Purdy would be my trade for target.
Once again, Dynasty is all about valuation, and he is not perceived that way, so you can get him for the cheap. All right, I want to give us one more category because people are either doing startups or they're shaving down their rosters right now, looking at their teams and saying, hey, I got to make way for rookies. So I want you guys, I'm calling this the roster dumpage section, roster dumpage category. So which player are you no longer rostering? And you were basically telling people in startups, like, don't do it. And then we'll roast you for doing it. Because, I mean, there's a case for anybody. I mean, there's a path for him. So Jason, you go first because this one is disgusting.
Yeah, I finally did it the day before my birthday. I finally dropped Terrace Marshall Jr. When I did it, a lot of times when you finally let go of someone, it feels real good. And I'm not going to lie to you, it didn't. It didn't. It felt bad. I was like, oh, man. I still hope he succeeds. But Terrace Marshall Jr., who I think is still like 12 years old, yeah, I just couldn't do it. I don't believe in Bryce Young, and obviously the team doesn't believe in Terrace Marshall. They've drafted multiple players ahead of him. He hasn't had a great opportunity. He's still 23 years old. He's a
second-round pick, Jason.
I mean,
Come
he's a second-round pick. He's a second-round pick that is younger than some of the current rookies coming in. You can't drop that guy.
No, and the production profile, he was there at LSU. I mean, what a touchdown. I can't believe he's going to find a new team, Jason. You're going to feel terrible.
It's in the United Football League.
I hope so, man.
He's going to crush it in the UFL, by the way. Does Terrace Marshall give you like Brian Thomas Jr. vibes, Kyle? Because didn't you make that comp during prospect season?
Well, I mean, it's the LSU thing of like playing second fiddle, getting the touchdowns, being a junior, all those.
It was really scary. Honestly, I feel like I had poorly biased tape watching with Brian Thomas because of Terrace Marshall Jr. Because when I watched Neighbors, I see Jamar Chase. Like they're very similar play style, play strength, body type, athleticism. Like not to mention for LSU as their wide receiver 1, And so it's like, it was really hard to not see that. So it was like, oh man, the guy across the field from him, he's supposed to be great. He's catching all these touchdowns. Terrace Marshall.
Let's hope that doesn't happen.
Hey, I still rostering him though. My team's
You are
that
still
bad.
rostering him?
Oh boy. I recently, there's not a lot of things in my life that cause me a lot of stress, but trying to roster Kadarius Toney has been one of those things. When I dropped him the other day, that was the best feeling in the world. I think it's over. They've already come out with a famous Chiefs offseason quote of like, we still believe in Kadarius. We still think he's one of the best playmakers on our team. Yet this guy was benched through the postseason into the Super Bowl, basically no injury, right? Like just didn't play. I dropped him. The writing's on the wall at this point. I think it's over.
Dude, he was a first-round pick.
By Urban
I don't
Meyer.
know why. Okay.
Oh, no, not Urban Meyer. What am I saying? He was with the Giants, right?
Yes, and when he was on the field, this guy has produced. Betz, what if I told you that Kadarius Toney has a higher targets per route number in his career than Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, and barely ahead of Amon-Ra? What if I told you that?
I would say that's awesome for him.
Yeah, he's done, dude. What a waste of a pick, by the way. I mean, I hate trolling on any NFL team, but come on, this was a terrible, terrible pick from a production profile to...
When they made it, the whole world was like, what are you doing? And then it turned out the whole world was right. Ugh.
Yeah.
That was Gettleman,
Yep.
right?
That was like...
With the Giants.
That was
Man.
his last draft that he basically never traded before, finally trades back and decides to get Toney. I think you can drop him. Somebody will pick him up because of the name.
No one has yet.
Because of the team. Really?
Yep.
He's
and
a great landmine.
I was trying to trade him for like a third, as soon as the season ended. And I knew like when I just got nothing and just decline, I was like, all right, just drop him.
All right. I'm going to just say that there are some wide receivers out there that you could tell yourself a story that you could pick up this guy, but there is no chance that Van Jefferson will be anything left in the NFL. I mean, he's super old. He's already 27. It's not happening. So he's gone. Do you guys have a case?
You talk about the wide receiver 2 right now for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, you think Quez Watkins and Calvin Austin and Denzel Mims and Des Fitzpatrick are getting there? Okay, so you got all the arguments for Roman Wilson of like how bad the depth chart is there. That still applies to Van Jefferson. And if you're listening and you're like, oh, Van Jefferson's a Steeler? Yep. You can't drop that guy.
What's so crazy about Van Jefferson is like last year entering the season with the Rams. There was a point in the summer where I was convinced like Van Jefferson might be the pick that you need in round 15 because there was no one 100%. There.
100%.
But you know what? Some guy named Puka Nacua was hanging out in the background. The opportunity was there. Van Jefferson is just not good.
Well, forget Puka Nacua. The opportunity was there. Tutu Atwell was awesome in the beginning of the season. And then that changed to Demarcus Robinson, who was awesome the second half of the season. Van Jefferson sucks.
Hey, he was so bad that he went to the Falcons with Arthur Smith. And then Arthur Smith went to the Steelers and said, I want this guy on the team. So maybe there's something. No, drop the dude. There's nothing there. Nothing there at all. We've got some great episodes coming up for you this summer. We'll be talking about a range of outcomes for rookies and updating everything in the Ultimate Draft Kit Plus. So make sure you join us. We'll see you again next week. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. If you want to take your dynasty skills to the next level, check out thefantasyfootballers.com.